Hi everyone, today's lesson is going to be on compositions of functions. This is a 2-day lesson, so I'd like to review a little bit about function notation first. I'm going to go to a new slide. You do not have to write any of this down unless you want to. Okay, say if I gave you the line y equals x minus 3. I'm going to draw a sketch of this. You do not have to draw it with me. I just want you to get a visual and an idea of what's going on. So just to recall, lines are always in the form mx plus b, where b is the y-intercept, where it crosses the y-axis. So it's going to cross the y-axis down here at 3. M is the number in front of the x, which is the slope. Remember, it's rise over run. So up 1 over 1 would go about here, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. So what's this? 1, 2, this would be at 3. Again, you do not have to worry about graphing it. I just want to show a picture. So what I could ask you without a picture is, what is the value? So let me write this. What is the y value when, for example, say x is 2? So we're going to look on the graph just to get a visual. When x is 2, y looks like it's negative 1. So I'll do that one more time. When x is 2, y is negative 1. So how can we do that algebraically? Well, we have a line that we can write, y equals x minus 3. We can plug in our x equals 2 value and take 2 minus 3, and we get negative 1. So y equals negative 1 over here when x is 2. Now this is what they showed you in middle school. So to make it a little bit more advanced, when you got to Algebra 1, you should be recognizing this notation f of x. So I could write this line, y equals x minus 3, as f of x equals x minus 3, where f of x is the same thing as saying y equals. So the way that we would do this same problem, what is the value of y when x is 2? When I use function notation f of x, all I'm going to do is write it as f of 2. So that means wherever there's an x, I'm going to replace it with 2. So there's an x right here, so we put a 2 minus 3. So f of 2 equals negative 1. So this right here means when x is 2, y equals negative 1. Or that point corresponds to 2, negative 1. We'll talk more about this tomorrow in class if necessary, but let's see if we can go ahead and try to actually do the functions now for compositions. Okay, let's do a review again. Number 1, given g of x, it's okay that I use g. I could put j, k, l. It doesn't matter what letter I put here. G of x still means y equals. So given y equals 2x squared minus 15, find g of 3. What does that mean, g of 3? Let's write it down. It means, what is y when x equals 3? It helps if you write it below. So we could write this as g of 3. And it's clear now that every time I see an x, I'm going to put a 3 in instead. So it's 2 parentheses 3 squared minus 15. So now what you're going to do is put this whole thing into the calculator and get a number. You should be getting 3. So this g of 3 came out to 3. So my question down here is, what does g of 3 equaling 3 actually mean? Well, it means that when x is 3, y equals 3. or it corresponds to the point 3, 3. That would be the point on the graph. Okay, let's talk about example number 2. Given f of x equals negative x to the third minus 1, find f of negative 2. So let's write it below, f of negative 2. So that means everywhere I see an x, I'm going to put in a negative 2. So bring down the negative, bring down a parenthesis, negative 2 to the third minus 1. Take a minute and put that into the calculator. I would pause the video now. Okay, your answer should be 7. So f of negative 2 equals 7. So down here where it says, what does g of 3 mean? I just made a typo. What does f of negative 2? So what does f of negative 2 equaling 7 mean? You should be saying it means when x is negative 2, y is equal to 7, or it would correspond to the point negative 2, 7 if I were to graph it. Okay, why was all of this necessary? This is all necessary because now I'm going to ask you to what I call compose two functions. When I ask you to compose something, I mean I'm asking you to put two things together. So maybe we could write that here. Put two functions together. That's pretty much what it means. Okay, let's analyze this. This is new notation. This is something you haven't seen before. So this says f follows g of x. That little o stands for the word follows. So let's write that in. This little o is follows. So the way that we read it, anytime we see a parenthesis, we're going to say the word of. So not obviously in the beginning, but f follows g of x equals f of g of x. Now, it's a lot easier to do some practice problems to understand it. So given example number 1, given this function g of x and this function f of x, I want you to find this. So using this definition of a composition of functions, we have this side. Let's write it in terms of that side. So f of or follows, you could say of or follows at this dot, f of g of 5. We could write that as f of g of 5. Notice how I exaggerated this parenthesis a bit, because it kind of tells you that you need to figure out what g of 5 is before I can apply f to it. So that's my first step. My first step is going to be to find g of 5. So we have to look at the g of x function. I like to rewrite it. You don't have to do all this work if you understand. So g of 5, we're going to plug in 5 every time I see an x. So g of 5 should equal 15 plus 5, which is 20. So now I just found out what g of 5 is. How about I replace that with what it's equal to? It tells me g of 5 equals 20. So instead of this g of 5 here, I'm really just going to cross it off and put 20. So now what does that mean for me to do? I want to find f of 20. So that's my... So let's write step 2. Find f of 20. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite the f of x function, 4x minus 10, and I get f of 20. So 4 times 20 is 80, minus 10, 70. So that means f of 20 is 70, and that is your final answer. This was a two-step process. So if you'd like, since this is what you wanted to find, you can write it out here. F of g of 5 equals 70. So whatever your last step came out to be, whatever number that is your final answer. Okay, let's try a second example. Example number 2, if f of x equals this and g of x equals that, then what is f, the way we're going to say this, f of g of 3. So every time there's a parenthesis, we're going to say the word of. F of g of 3. So I'm going to exaggerate the way that we write this, and I'm going to write it as f, big parenthesis, g of 3. So that tells me that I have to find g of 3 first. So that's step 1. Find g of 3. Again, I'm going to rewrite the g of x function, x squared minus 2. And I'm going to plug in now g of 3. So, parentheses, 3 squared minus 2. So 3 squared is 9. 9 minus 2 is 7. So I just found out that g of 3 equals 7. So what I'm going to do now, instead of this g of 3, I'm going to cross it off and put a 7. So now what do I need to find? F of 7. So that's step 2. Find f of 7. So I'm going to rewrite the f of x function. And I'm going to find f of 7. Now you can pause the video and put this into the calculator, or do it in your head. Negative 2 times 7 is negative 14. Negative 14 plus 7 is negative 7. So f of 7 equals negative 7. So again, since this is what you were trying to find, you could rewrite it as f of g of 3 equaled negative 7 after that two-step process. Okay, how do we feel about this so far? If you have some questions, jot them down at this time and we'll go over them tomorrow in class. Let's go on to another example. Okay, example 3. If f of x equals this and g of x equals that, what is the value of f of g of 8? Or you could say it, f follows g of 8. If f is following g of 8, we got to do g of 8 first. So this is written as f, big parentheses, g of 8. So that means I need to do g of 8 first, and f is following it. F follows g of 8. So first step, find g of 8. So I'm going to rewrite the g of x function. And now I'm going to plug in 8. So 2 times 8 gives you 16. So g of 8 equals radical 16. What's the square root of 16? You should be telling me 4. So g of 8 equals 4. So again, I'm going to cross off g of 8 and put 4 with what it is equal to. So now, in order to finish the problem, I need to find f of 4. So step 2 is find f of 4. So I'm going to rewrite the f of x function, and I'm going to plug in 4. And after you put this side into the calculator, you should get f of 4 equals 80. So your final answer for what the question was asking for you to find f of g of 8, and you get 80. That's your final answer. All right, let's try number 4. 4 is a little bit on the trickier side. If you want to pause the video, see if you can try it on your own, that's fine. I'm going to walk through it just like as if I were teaching it. Okay, so it's saying if f of x equals this and g of x equals this, then what is f of g of a half? Looks funny, but we're going to do it the same way. So let's write it again. F of g of a half. So again, I exaggerated the parentheses. This tells me that I need to find g of a half first. So step 1, find g of a half. So I'm going to rewrite the g of x function like usual. So g of a half And every time you substitute with you want to make sure that you're using parentheses, 1 divided by 1/2. So the answer to this is actually 2. If you don't get 2 when you put it in the calculator, someone come remind me in class that we should go over how to put that in with the new operating system. There's a pretty cool trick that I want to show you guys. All right, so g of a half equals 2. So instead of g of a half, I'm going to put 2. So my second step is going to be now to find f of 2. So step 2, find f of 2. So we're going to rewrite the f of x function. And then we're going to plug in 2. Pause the video, figure out what this is. F of 2 should equal 4. Okay, so your final answer for f of g of a half is 4. Okay, the last two questions involve our knowledge of graphing. So it just says for number 5, the accompanying graph is the sketch of y equals f of x. So when you label graphs, like this would be your graph of f of x. And then it says over the interval 0 is less than or equal to x, less than or equal to 7. This just means it's graphed on the interval between 0 and 7. So notice how it starts here at 0, ends here at 7. That's all that means. So they're asking you to find what is the value of f of 6. So let's just rewrite what that means. That means f of 6. We don't have any equation to go by here, so we have to do this all graphically. So I need to find f of 6 first. What does that mean? We did it in the do now. Why don't you, or not do now, the stuff that we did in the beginning, in the review. Why don't you pause the video, look back and try to figure out what this f of 6 means, and then hit resume. Okay, f of 6, this means what is y when x is 6. So we have a graph. The graph is saying, what is y when x is 6? So we're going to go all the way over. Look what I'm doing, all the way over to 6. What is y? Look up. Y looks like 2. That's your answer. What is y when x is 6? So we'll do it again. Went over 6, and what was the y value? The y value was 2. So that means f of 6 is 2. Because 2 is the y value when x is 6. And now I'm going to bring this down, and now I want to find f of 2. What does that mean? That means what is y when x is 2? So we're going to look again on the graph. Where is x 2? Oh, look down. The answer is -2. So that is my final answer. So f of 6 equals -2. Okay, now I have tables instead of a graph, and they want you to find g of f of 3. So let's write that in a way that makes sense. So g of f of 3. What does f of 3 mean? This is what we have to do first. F of 3 means, I'll write it down, what is y when x is 3? So we need to look at the f of x function. So we can't look at this chart. We have to look at this one. So it's asking me to say, what is y when x is 3? So we're going to look at x, and we're going to go to 3. The y value is 5. And notice how it says f of x. Remember, f of x is the same thing as saying y equals. So the question f of 3 says, what is y when x is 3? X is 3. What is y? 5. So instead of f of 3, we're going to put 5. So my next and last step is to find g of 5. So g of 5, what does that mean? It means what is y when x is 5? And we have to look at this g of x chart because that's what I'm talking about, g. So again, what is y when x is 5? So when x is 5, what is y? Y is 8. The answer is 8 because this is your y equals. So again, what is y when x is 5? X is 5, y is 8. So 8 was the last step, so that's my final answer. I ran out of room to write it, but this whole thing equals 8. Okay, let this sink in a little bit. We're going to practice all of this tomorrow. Come in with questions, please.